relaxation of measures, given the current existing situation and the circulation of variants, and the fact that it will still be many months before a large proportion of Filipinos are vaccinated, we may witness a situation where there will be an upsurge of cases and an overwhelming of the health.
That is the World Health Organization warning of a possible spike in cases should restrictions be eased across the country.
This follows a vote by majority of Metro Manila mayors recommending that the NCR be placed under modified general community quarantine. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I am Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. We begin tonight with Metro Manila mayors agreeing to place the country's capital under MGCQ, or the most lenient quarantine status. They have also agreed to ease age restrictions.
This is despite health experts warning of an upsurge in COVID-19 cases, especially with the transmission of new COVID variants. Ryan Ang has the big story.
With a tight vote of 9-8, majority of Metro Manila mayors agreed with the recommendation to ease NCR status to MGCQ starting March. 13 also favored to allow those aged between 15 to 65 to go out.
Na hanggat maaari ay kung ano yung palisiya ng isa, mapa-curfew, MGCQ, lahat, maaari ay lahat na lang, no? So uniform.
MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos says those who want to retain GCQ status are concerned of another lockdown should COVID-19 cases spike once again.
You can't blame them, talagang medyo halos naubos na ho ang pera ng LGU and they can't afford na magkaroon ng another lockdown.
The World Health Organization fears the same. Its country representative warns of an upsurge if there will be an overall easing instead of targeted measures.
That situation is also complicated by the presence of so-called new variants. And I believe firmly that we still need to maintain these restrictions.
But the MMDA clarifies local governments can still opt for localized lockdowns. Navota City Mayor Toby Tiangco voted to retain GCQ and the current age restriction of 18 to 65.
At dahil sinasabi nung Okta Research na mukhang hindi pa safe para doon sa below 18, so yun ang naging basihan ng aking boto.
In an interview with One News Agenda, Dr. Andrew Camposano of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines is strongly advised against allowing minors to go out.
Pag mataas pa rin po yung cases, tapos dadagdagan natin yung mga taong lumalabas, hindi lalo po siyang tataas yung mga kaso sa atin.
The League of Provincial Governors are ready to loosen restrictions, but they have yet to make a unified position.
Pwede naman pong ilagay sa MGCQ lahat. Pero ang sabi ko nga po ay kunin yung approval ng local chief executive ng probinsya.
But do Metro Manila residents agree that restrictions should be eased?
Para makaahon naman tayo sa makabawi naman tayo para maayos na lahat ng trabaho.
Makakapagtrabaho kami ng maayos, ma'am, kasi may mga street pa rin kaming di nadadaanan, ma'am eh.
Kailangan may vaccine muna tayo. Kasi the more na maraming tao, the more nakakalat.
For News 5, Ryan Ang, We Are One News.
After almost 1 year since the implementation of ECQ in Luzon, the proposal to place the country in the least restrictive lockdown is starting to pick up steam. How are health workers reacting? Let's hear from Dr. Maricar Limpin. She is the Vice President of the Philippine College of Physicians. Good evening, Dr. Limpin.
Hi, good evening, Robbie, and good evening to all our televiewers.
Dr. Limpin. Are we ready? Are we ready for MGCQ? What is the perspective of public health professionals here?
Your frontliners, us frontliners, are always ready to serve the country, no? So it's not a question of whether we are ready or not. Ang tanong siguro natin diyan, are we all ready to go into MGCQ? Kasi easing up these restrictions means na ang shift of responsibility will be on the individuals na. talagang purely the heavy responsibility nasa atin ng mga mamamayan, ano? So malaking responsibilidad yan. So meaning to say, all of us must make sure that we will be following the health protocols. Face mask, face shield, and the physical distancing. And secondly, pag dumami, we can expect dadami ang tao na lalabas, no? And that means marami ang mga ngailangan ng transportasyon. Ready na ba tayo diyan? As of now, nakikita naman natin na karamihan ng mga jeep, punong-puno, wala nga physical distancing. May mga bus na nakikita tayo na puno rin, no? Wala ring halos physical distancing yon, no? So, I don't think na as far as transportation service is concerned, kailangan siguro siguraduhin muna na magkakaroon ng access ang mga tao sa sasakyan at mapapanatili natin na pag gumamit tayo ng sasakyan, no, tayo naman ay safe na makakarating sa ating kaparoroonan at makakabalik din ang bahay ng safe.
Hey, Doktora, malinaw naman yung mensahe nyo. Yung responsibilidad, yung accountability comes down to the individual. But when that spike in numbers and that rise in numbers goes up, that will be of little consolation that we can turn to each other and say na, oh, sinabi ko naman sa'yo, mag-ingat ka. What's the worst case scenario for all of us, and what do you think should there be a mechanism or a fail-safe in place? And what are the indicators, do you think, that should prompt government, both on the national and local governments, to reconsider MGCQ?
Well, siguro, no, as far as we are concerned, definitely, even with a spike in the number of cases, medyo magdadalawang isip na kami in asking for a timeout. Kasi we know how heavily burdened the Filipinos are pagdating sa ekonomiya. So medyo mahirap nang talaga yan, Robbie. But that is also the reason kung bakit when I told you, no, na the greater responsibility is shifted to us, but at the same time, meron ding responsibility ang mga LGUs and also the national government to provide a safer transportation for each and every Filipinos who will be going out of their house. So, importante na may equal responsibility rin naman, ano? But we have to be sure na lahat ng ito kaya natin gawin. Kasi if not, then I would actually support few of those LGU city mayors natin dito sa Metro Manila na nagsasabi na wag mo nang gawing modified GCQ ating quarantine measures.
But Doktora, in the meantime, nandyan na po yan, and now the mayors have voted. It was a close vote, but at the end of the day, the Metro Manila mayors did endorse this. Do they have enough to mitigate against the situation that we fear, particularly their option still to have targeted lockdowns?
I think pag may nakita sila na medyo tumataas na kaso in certain barangay, in certain community, then immediately they need to put this community in lockdown, no? And then make sure lang na those who will be getting sick, no, meron din silang kapupuntahan, meron silang mga isolation facilities na pwedeng puntahan, at yung mga ospital naman din nila ay handa, no, tatanggapin ang mga tao na pupunta because of COVID-19. As of now, no, right, hindi lahat na ng ospital, even government hospitals, ano, sometimes pag nakita nila na ang tao ay galing, like let us say from Manila, ito ay nakikita na namin na experience na, tapos dumadating like let us say sa ospital dito sa Quezon City, pinababalik yun sa Manila. So medyo malaking malaking problema yon, because that means that itong mga taong ito will have to be traveling and will have to wait for many hours bago sila mabigyan ng attention doon sa kanilang medical condition.
Okay, Dr. Limpin, maraming salamat po. That was Philippine College of Physicians Vice President Dr. Maricar Limpin. As it cautioned against easing restrictions, the World Health Organization says cases in the Philippines are still plateauing. Looking at UP Octa Research Group data, the trend for new COVID-19 cases in the country remains flat so far. Tonight's big number, 1,680. That's the average number of new cases reported in the entire country this month. Octa Research says the current national average remains nearly the same since November. Positivity rate in NCR remains at 4%, while Cebu City's increased to 13%.
These are the other big stories tonight. Vaccines may not be arriving to the country this month after all. Without an emergency authorization from the local FDA, the February 23 target arrival of Sinovac vaccines may face delays. The Philippine General Hospital faces one more dilemma before vaccines arrive, a shortage of low dead space syringe. The special syringe maximizes the use of Pfizer shots. And a COVID-19 variant of concern has been detected in Central Visayas. They are not ruling out the possibility that it's behind the surge in cases in Cebu. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. President Duterte has certified as urgent the proposed measure that would provide an indemnity fund for COVID-19 vaccines. But there's a big chance that the country will not even receive its first batch of vaccine supplies this month. Maricel Halili tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte has certified as urgent the indemnification bill. The measure states that the national government, not vaccine makers, will take responsibility should jobs have adverse effects.
It will satisfy the requirements considering that they will not be sued for that liability.
But so far, the FDA has only issued emergency use authorization. No manufacturer has been granted commercial use authorization. This means vaccine evaluation is still incomplete, so the extent of side effects is not yet definite.
Bakit naman tayo mag-aantay hanggang magkakaroon ng commercial use authorization? Nandiyan na nga po yung mga bagong variant na mas nakakahawa at mas nakakamatay.
The indemnification bill allocates a budget to compensate those who will experience adverse effects due to the inoculation.
Inapruba na ni Secretary Dominguez ay 500 million. Diyan natin kukunin po lahat ng danyos ng hihingin ng mga tao.
President Duterte also issued a memorandum order allowing local governments to make an advance payment exceeding 15% to immediately secure shots. Procurement law caps advance payment to 15%. But despite these developments, vaccine rollout may not even materialize this month. The palace has repeatedly said that China's Sinovac will arrive on February 23. It has yet to secure the FDA's EUA, a requirement before delivery.
Dahil inaantay po natin yung EUA ng Sinovac, kinakailangan po lumabas ngayong araw. Kung hindi po, baka hindi rin po makarating ng 23.
Pfizer and AstraZeneca shots via the COVAX facility have no arrival date yet. Vaccine Chief Galvez says they are still waiting for Pfizer's response to the indemnification agreement. What is definite for now is the arrival of bulk of vaccines on the second half of this year. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
Experts are closely monitoring a supposed COVID variant of concern in Central Visayas. This comes after news of two OFWs who had previously been vaccinated against COVID-19, and yet they still tested positive for the virus in Cebu. The DOH Region 7 said this cannot be considered a local variant just yet, since sequencing procedures have yet to be completed. They are not ruling out the possibility that it may be linked to the high cases in Cebu.
Tatanong sa kanya is a mutation of concern. O kaya, naging variant of concern siya o kaya variant of under investigation.
While an indemnification agreement with Pfizer has yet to be ironed out, another cause for concern is the shortage of low-dead space syringe. What exactly is that? Greg Gregorio tells us.
The Philippine General Hospital is all set for the arrival of Pfizer's vaccines. It is among the first institutions to receive the U.S. drug maker's 117,000 doses. But they have one problem: the supply of low-dead space syringes. These would help maximize the use of Pfizer vaccines.
All set na po except for the low dead space syringe. Yun lang pong hindi namin mahanap. Kahit saan po kami maghanap na supplier, wala po.
But what is a low-dead space syringe? According to the Food and Drug Administration, air enters during liquid extraction from a vial using standard syringe. This causes bubbling. This bubble must be removed. But some liquid will also be drawn out in the process, putting it to waste. This may lead to 5 to 10% vaccine wastage.
Kasi talagang hindi mo makukuha na eksakto eh. Tapos may matatapon, may mawawala, or nandun na sa dulo yung dulo ng bote ng hirap-hirap ng simutin.
A low-dead space syringe diminishes that room between the needle and the plunger. FDA Director General Eric Domingos says using this for Pfizer shots increases the 5 dose to 6. The health department says the Pfizer shots from COVAX facility already come with low-dead space syringes. But the DOH clarifies that a supplier of this special syringe is still needed for the millions of doses of Pfizer vaccines that we are targeting to procure outside COVAX facility.
Actually, there was this one supplier, pero yung ating nilagay na presyo ay sobrang taas naman po yun sa supplier, kaya hindi po aabot yung budget natin for that.
For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The country's first tropical cyclone this year intensified into a tropical storm. Auring is expected to make landfall over Caraga by Saturday evening or Sunday morning. No cyclone signal hoisted just yet, but Pag-asa warns of heavy rains in the Visayas, Caraga, Northern Mindanao, Bicol, Calabarzon, Davao Region, Lanao del Sur, and Mimaropa over the weekend. Detained Senator Laila De Lima has been acquitted in one of 3 drug cases filed against her. De Lima calls the acquittal moral victory, but a regional trial court junked De Lima's petition for bail in the second case. Her camp will appeal the decision, stressing that the senator is not a flight risk. De Lima's third drug case remains pending before a separate branch of the Muntinlupa RTC. And more than a year since Taal volcano's eruption and with new threats of another discharge, a relocation site for displaced Batangas residents finally broke ground. PAGCOR donated 30 million pesos for the housing project, which can accommodate 100 families, though that's only a quarter of affected families. Time for another quick break. When we return, a senator seeks to extend voter registration. With 7 months left, millions have yet to sign up for the polls. And the faithful might just be motivated to exercise their faith at home with this priest on TikTok. A look at his moves after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Commission on Elections is racing against time to have at least 1 million Filipinos registered for the national elections come 2022. One lawmaker is proposing an extension while mail-in voting is also being considered. Mayan Los Baños has this report.
More than 73 million Filipinos will be above 18 years old by 2022, meaning they're eligible to vote in the next national elections. But of this figure, only 58 million are registered. This leaves the Commission on Elections 7 months to register 15 million voters.
So itong 15 million na to ay hindi birong numero ito. The presidency and the Senate, composition of the Senate, the composition of the House will all depend or can very well depend on if we are able to register or not more of those who are not registered.
During a Senate hearing, Comelec says of the 4 million new voters, they are now just waiting for 1 million who have yet to sign up. The poll body says 1.3 million have already registered. Another 1.6 million are already in the voters list since they registered for the Sangguniang Kabataan elections. But there's one more problem. 7 million voters have been deactivated after failing to vote in 2 consecutive polls.
Sa deactivated na 7 million, wala ka na bang maibabalik dyan?
Conservative estimate na sa mga 3 million ang babalik to file for reactivation. And so far, ang nag-file pa lang ng reactivation from the period of January last year up to January this year, nasa mga 200,000 pa lang. So medyo malaki-laki pa ang bubunuin namin.
In order to accommodate the millions who have yet to register, Senator Kiko Pangilinan proposes to extend registration for at least a month.
Your biggest information dissemination campaign is when the candidates start filing. Because doon nga ngayon magkakaroon ng greater awareness.
Be a very, very tight schedule for us in our timeline. So, ang daming apektado from the configuration, from everything and so on and so forth. But then again, we will look into that.
Comelec will discuss the matter in their next unbanked meeting, but they also seek to align the targets with the Philippine Statistics Authority in order to accommodate repatriated overseas workers. PhilPost says it's ready to address the possibility of mail-in voting, saying it expects to go fully digital by April to May this year. Senators say pilot testing of mail-in voting may be done in areas which Comelec can closely monitor and study. Reporting for News 5, Mayan Los Baños, we are One News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From Philstar.com, the Food and Drug Administration said Russia's Sputnik V vaccine lacks some crucial documents. This delays the approval for its emergency use authorization. Among the documents is a certification assuring vials are of the same quality and stability when it's transported. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Jocno says it's too early to raise interest rates. Business World reports that Jocno is looking at 2021 as a recovery year and finds the current policy setting as appropriate. Jocno also expects inflation to taper off by the second half of this year and by 2022. And satellite images by US-based Similarity show new structures on the Mischief or Panganiban Reef. This is the largest of the 7 artificial islands built by China. UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea Director J. Batong Bakal urges the armed forces to prepare for a potential threat should the Mischief Reef become a fully operational military base.
And here are the other big stories from around the world. Millions of Texans braved their 3rd day without heat due to a massive power failure of the state's power grid. This follows a punishing winter storm that killed at least 21 people across 4 states. Weather Service forecasts temperatures across central and southern U.S. to remain 20 to 35 degrees below average in the days to come. And Britain's Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth's 99-year-old husband, was admitted to the hospital after feeling ill. A royal source said the ailment is not COVID-related. The Queen, who is 94 years old herself, remains at Windsor Castle near London where the pair spends the pandemic. Both have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Time for the big stories in sports. Serena Williams came just within reach of a record-tying 24th Grand Slam title, but not today, said Japanese tennis star Naomi Osaka, who dominated the Australian Open semifinals 6-3, 6-4. Osaka reached her fourth major title match and extended her winning streak to 20 matches by claiming the last 8 points. In her salute to Williams, Osaka said being on the court against the tennis icon is a dream itself. She had already beaten Williams during the 2018 US Open final. Osaka will face 22nd seeded American Jennifer Brady for the championship title on Saturday.
Disney's classic villain is getting her own movie. Emma Stone portrays the infamous, stylish dog napper Cruella de Vil in Cruella. Set in 70s London, the movie follows the rise of young fashion designer Estella de Vil. Before she became the 101 Dalmatians antagonist. I'm Cruella. Cruella will be released May 28. But for those into serials, there's Netflix Dota, Dragon's Blood. The 8-episode animated series based on the popular video game follows Davion the Dragon Knight, who's devoted to wiping the scourge from the face of the world.
Davion. Dragon Knight.
Dragon's Blood will premiere on March 25. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
A Catholic Mass would conclude with, "Go and announce the gospel of the Lord." Well, this priest takes the mission to the next level. Father Fiel Pareja of the Archdiocese of San Fernando uses TikTok to proclaim the good news. Father Fiel grins in front of the camera, dances to upbeat music, his screen replete with emojis and stickers. He says TikTok is a wonderful platform for evangelization, especially during this pandemic. Father just gained 900,000 followers. Kaya mo yun? 900,000 followers and celebrated the milestone with some snappy moves. Buti pa si Father. Amazing.
Bang, bang.
That's amazing.
I know you have followers. Are you on TikTok?
Yeah, but hindi ko siya matalo, 100,000 lang ako.
Well, whether religion or social media, it's the same game, gaining more followers.
But it's amazing how you can use that platform for good. I'm following some pastors myself on TikTok. And, it's nice to see our priests and pastors in another element.
Yeah, whatever works.
That wraps up today's big story. My name is Gretchen Hall. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News. Good evening.